Hi, I'm Patty McGarrahan with The Mind's Eye, and I am here today with Lyndsey Lefort. She started out as a student and has kind of turned into a friend, and she's crazy enough that really entertains me, so I'm so glad that we have her here today.
Thank you.
Quite an introduction, huh? She didn't want me to tell what she does.
Well, it's always different. It's always a surprise.
It's always a surprise.
Yeah, mostly mediumship. Mostly.
That's your majority thing.
Yeah, as my ears ringing.
Yes.
I like everything, though.
Right. Now, tell me how you tend to get your information.
So, I love this subject because everybody gets it and receives their information differently, right? And I started to feel, that's how it started in the beginning, and I was feeling, and I was very good at it in the beginning, and then I started to hear. And that's what threw me off a little bit, because I could hear everything. So I feel like over time, what it did was tune me more into being receptive to the person across from me instead of kind of all the voices that I was hearing, which has been really interesting. But that's my strongest ability is the hearing, and I'm not a good listener, so I don't know why.
I had my grandson one time. I've told the story, I think, on the show before, but I'll tell it again because I think it's very important on how we all get it different. I was only people were allowed that did group mediumship things that were allowed in a class. It was an advanced program down at Karma Castle and Ormond Beach, Florida. And I'm going back there in October. I'm looking forward to it. But when I went into that class, there was one girl in there. She kind of dressed like the lollipop kid, like she was very happy-go-lucky, but she was very intense. And she was telling me that, 2 or 3 of us, that all of her events and everything, she was running into problems because a student of hers was coming and double connecting to her.
Really?
So I thought it was garbage because I have all my students double connect with me, and that's part of my teaching process for mediumship. So I was a little surprised by the whole thing. Well, then afterwards, I went back down to Florida in a very short time because I do love to travel with this stuff. And I went to a conference, after death conference, a lot of mediumship stuff, and there was a rather well-known medium there. And I got in his spirit circle. And I wanted to do spirit circle with him, but it was too expensive in New York. Yeah. So at this conference, I could afford it. So I went into the spirit circle, and I was the first one he talked to. But then it was, the next people were a group of 3, so 3 out of the 8 were from the same family. So I did a double connect. And when I did the double connect, I have like 20 people talking in my head at the same time. But being ADHD, I love that.
Well, because you can go from one to the next to the next to the next.
Yes, kind of like having the 17 screens open on your computer at the same time.
Right.
Same type of deal.
It keeps you occupied.
So all of a sudden, because if I concentrate on one thing, I can't get it. Right. If I'm doing 50 things at once, I can get all 50.
You find you get bored if it's too long of one subject.
You got it. So all of a sudden, he turns to me and he goes, "You've got 20 people talking in your head at the same time. I couldn't do that." And I disconnected right away, and all of a sudden he was getting fantastic messages for them. So I said, ooh, I jumped out in my head, not to anybody, just in my own head, and was judgmental of that girl when I had to understand that some people get it so they can't do that. But most of the people I had dealt with, because the ADHD crowd tends to follow me, they all had the same thing. And so my grandson, about a week later, out of the blue, comes to me, and we were talking about mediumship because he has it, and he rubbed my arm and he goes, "Grandma, we do it different. They come and touch your arm, and then all these people talk in your head." And he goes, "And then they show you pictures." He goes, "They come and touch my arm. I bring up a picture of who it is. and then they talk to me like you're talking to me. So he's clairsentinel, clairaudient, and I'm clairsentinel, clairaudient more, voyant more. And the difference, but to have, I think he was 8 at the time, 7, 8 years old, and he's explaining to me something that it took me.
Well, I think it's what you're most comfortable with too, and he probably was receiving at that state and could hear it, and then he was able to tell you.
Yeah.
And they know that you're going to listen because it's your grandson.
Absolutely. Yeah, good point. I didn't think of it that way, Lyndsey.
Well, they do that to me. They'll go, okay, well, she's not going to listen to us if we tell her 300 times, so let's go through another person that she's really respecting and loving and see what comes through there. So I've tried my best to listen to them more, because I'm like, all right, if they're going to say the same thing, I might as well take the shortcut and listen to them, so that 300 people aren't coming to me telling me the same thing. But we have a joke about yoga now, because I've heard yoga about 15,000 times, and I'm like, oh, one day I'll just get myself ready. I'm getting myself ready.
Jeremy's teaching a class.
Yeah. I'm getting myself ready for yoga. So it's been fun.
It's been fun. Excellent, excellent. So now you do mostly phone readings? Is that true?
So I do phone. I do online, and then I do some FaceTime. I'm teaching a class right now, which has been fun.
Is that FaceTime?
Through FaceTime, and it's mostly meditation. So what I have found that people are really resistant to is the meditation part. They like the psychic part and the exciting parts, but the meditation is where you really hone your skill and you kind of get a lot of clarity. I find that if you can have psychic information, but it depends on the frequency of where you are. So if you're not meditating and clearing yourself and, really in a good space, then you're going to pick up on a different frequency, and you might scare some people, I'll say. You stay pretty in alignment, so you're good.
I do most of the time.
Yeah. But you can tell when you're a little bit off, because you'll attract people that are a little more fearful of things and what's out there and stuff like that.
Well, I spent a lot of time trying to get rid of the mediumship, only because I felt the death.
Which then it comes in stronger?
No, what they do is they tear apart your life, so you start go grasping for the holistics until you get yourself back on track.
Yeah.
So the first time they did it to me, it was like my life was a mess for a few years. The second time they went to do it, I sat in my office and I looked up at the sky. Now I'm sitting there as controller of a very large business, sitting there going, I promise, I'll do whatever you want if you just stop doing this to me.
That's where I look too. That's so funny, because they're really not up there, but I think they do that to be funny. They're like, we'll be up here for you to see us up here, just to make you look silly, or like you're doing something,
Yeah.
I think I distract myself from someone else sitting there by looking up a little bit, because staring at them and then talking kind of would be a little bit weird, I think.
just a little, right.
Dazed into them.
And I had Sylvia Brown was the one that's, I don't know, one of her TV shows, a group of us from the Mind's Eye went to, what was his name? Montel Williams show.
I was going to say Montel Williams.
Yes, and we went to see her, and we didn't know when it was going to air, so I just started taping it every week on Wednesdays. And the week before our show, and of course, I got to ask her a question, and I didn't ask her the question that I needed to ask her, because who the heck does that,
Right.
And then she said to the lady asked, how do I stop from feeling their death? And she said it so crass, you just ask them not to, in that 4-pack of cigarette voice that I love to repeat because I think it's funny. And I asked them not to, and they never did it again.
Yeah.
And they figured out how to get that information to me without having to have me feel their deaths.
I felt it very strong in the beginning. I would feel a lot of things very strong. I would almost, if it was something with the throat, I would be choking and going like this. And now it's so subtle that I'll still feel it, but it'll just be so subtle that it's really not much of anything. And it doesn't feel bad. It feels more like different, but I have found that my mediumship has changed because of the frequency of which I'm on. So you change your frequency, you change the information that you receive.
Yep.
And I find when the validity was great in the beginning because it gave me the knowledge and it was able to give other people the knowledge. But then what comes after that? You can validate and validate over and over again.
That message is the important part.
That healing within, because healing yourself, but you're healing yourself from things that you've caused here in life. So it's like, or they have caused, I feel like, or someone has, it's hard to explain. Let me see if I can put it into words. But if you have an individual that's on the other side that has caused a lot of abuse in your life, and then they're there and they see that within you, and I feel like they're there to show you the way in order to release that.
Absolutely. And I've got so many people that have had, I didn't realize there were that many people with the problem with schizophrenia and stuff like that, but I have, in a development class, I had 3 people sitting in a row one time that all 3, and 2 of the mothers had passed, and they were just saying, please, forgive me. I don't need your forgiveness. Just forgive me so you release that energy from your soul.
Right. Well, because I think that you can only take so much of something. So if it's abusive in some way, you can only take so much of something to where it affects you, and then it I don't want to say dims your light, because it doesn't dim your light ever. It just causes more negative emotion so that your light feels less, which it never is. But I think that if and it's harder to come out from there. So it's harder to look at light-filled things, like who wants to talk about bunnies and rabbits when they're really depressed? They're like, I'd rather be depressed, So if you can climb up the ladder and get yourself to feeling better and better and better, then that's where the light is. But I think that most people want a quick fix. They want to go from depression or like a really terrible place that they're feeling, or something that they just don't even like, to something they really love. I was listening to something the other day, and they were talking about money, and it made me laugh, because she was reading, and she said, "Oh, you're coming into a lot of money. This has come from a place that you haven't had any money." And I'm thinking, you can't get money from a place of not having money, because if you think about not having money, you just can't get it. It doesn't happen that way. You have to walk yourself into being more abundant, and it's funny to listen to.
It was so funny too, because I've just had a lot of stuff break in my house and costs and stuff like that. So I just feel like that some of my little fallout money has disappeared and dwindled. And I was laughing because I was explaining it to a client this morning, and I explained to the client that her constant worrying about money was causing the problem. And I said, you dingbat, it's you too. I was obsessing. I had money coming in that was owed to me, and I was obsessing over this charge card that I might have to pay $20 interest. And I'm losing sleep over it. But if one of my grandkids say, I want these $150 pair of sneakers, I'd buy it for them.
Oh, right. It's so when you have to give them.
It made no sense. And I could see myself all right, the $1,000 comes in, and 2 minutes later, an oil delivery for $900 shows up. Do you know what I mean? So it's like.
And don't you think that's why the things break those, to show you it's always there?
Absolutely.
Because I feel like sometimes it's a funny joke, like, oh, we're just going to mess with this so that it will not work temporarily. I've had so many things not work temporarily and then work just fine.
Oh, they like to flood me. Floors lifting, you know. They don't like to just mess around. They have to kick me in the butt because I'm a fix-it person, and those little things I would be fixing like that. Right. And I do know that if I get a lot of little things, I have to get them straightened out very quickly and pay attention, else it will.
The big things. They like to get bigger and bigger, right?
Yes, yes. And they do that with everything in my life.
Oh,
they do that with everything in my life.
Oh, yeah.
But that whole thing that I did, and then I got the money came in, and I paid it without making sure that went through the bank, and got myself nervous about it. It was the stupidest thing. And I have other put away money that I wouldn't touch.
Right.
That I decided I'm not going to touch until I get old, because I'm just a spring chicken now, you know. And I was just laughing because I said it was so stupid.
And what I find so funny is that we both know what to do in order to get away from the subject. Like, something will happen and they'll go, okay, we'll think about something else. And I'm like, no, we need to fix this, but right now we need to fix this. They're like, let's go outside and we'll go for a walk. And I'm like, no, but we need to fix this right now. And I'm like, but if you go outside for a walk, it will help you and release the energy.
But I find that so many things, like, all right, I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, can't go back to sleep. 3 deep breaths, and I can go back to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
So all of a sudden, 3 nights in a row, I forget to do that. And then I have a client. And I go, you need to take deep breaths at night, and then you go back to sleep. And I go, you dingbat, you need to do that yourself.
Right. A lot of times I feel like the message is for us.
Don't you feel like sometimes with the clients, I feel like I'm receiving even more than I'm giving? And I had a beautiful mediumship story. I had a gentleman that was very, very heartbroken over his wife had passing, and she was much younger, so he thought he was like all set, and was shocked that she went first. And he was worrying about how she passed, and she like kept worrying and worrying. So like I said before, they used to make me feel it. This time she had a heart attack. She kept doing this, rubbing her chest, and she showed me Tums. So I said to her, she thought it was heartburn, but it was actually the heart, and then she fell and she hit her head. For some reason, he was obsessed with, did she hit her head first or heart attack first, which, like, what difference does it make? It's not going to bring her back.
Right.
And when I explained to him what happened, he goes, oh my God, she was going through bottles of Tums. And then I said to him, but why did you care which happened first? It wasn't going to bring her back. And he goes,
so
why did I?
Off, yeah.
Why did I? And by the end of the session, I was so excited for him because he was talking about maybe getting a reading to find out like what's coming up for him in life. He was going to see if his sisters would go and everything. And he was like so upbeat compared to like how he came in. And I almost didn't see him because they wouldn't give me the first name because somebody pulled an irreputable one, pulled some stuff. And after I left there, I said, this isn't fair. I need to put this out. So I did a Facebook Live to try to give back.
Well, that's the funny thing I find too is when you go to, because I've had a lot of people that have come to me and they'll say, oh, this person was so terrible I went to. But you have to remember too, if you're at a terrible psychic, you're asking for a good one, so you'll end up getting a good one. You just have to release that feeling of everyone's bad.
And sometimes some of them, like this person that this man was talking about, had talked to the daughter and got enough information that he was able to find the obituary, and she had little notes with the first letters of all the family members going down the line. Like he recognized that it was
so much work.
Her name. Like, why do all that? I
could never remember. I said, you know, if I start coming out with your social security number and your bank account number, then I'm not truthful.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's that accurate. I mean, some things I'm still surprised with, but if it's that specific, then they went somewhere and looked somewhere. It's you're going by a feeling and you're trying to interpret 50 million different energies.
The lady that he had call me, she kept saying she wouldn't give a name, she wouldn't give a name. And then Spirit must have given me a name because I sent a text with the first name, and then she got mad because she thought like I looked up the phone and did something, you know.
Right.
And then what happened, Spirit went another step farther, and my phone was on my bed, her phone was on the dining room table, and they kept calling each other.
Yeah, they'll keep connecting you, which I think is great. And so, which you
knew that the wife was making sure that I would see him. But I did the Facebook Live, and I just wanted so many people to get messages. I talked way too fast. Like, people had to re-listen to them, and I'm listening to myself, and I'm going, what the hell? I talk fast anyway, but this was Patty, like all revved up.
That's
you think I drank a monster drink or something before?
Well, because you're receiving so fast, so it's coming out of your mouth.
Well, you also want as many people to get messages. Right. There were 100. I only put it up like 20 minutes before, and I had 150 people there. So
isn't it funny? I find that you get you're like, okay, everybody, I'm going to read everybody in there, and then you're like, how am I going to do that? What about all these people? And then it happens, and then you're like, oh, it was so easy.
Yeah.
Because it changes each time.
I had a bunch of people asking me if I could connect to people for 3 days after.
Oh, I'm sure,
yeah. That they had. But in the meantime, I had about 8 people that sent me beautiful messages that it was just what they needed. And I said, I'm so glad, because I used to do those more regularly. And I had my daughter assisting me, and then that, you know, so now I'm having to try to do the messages while you're doing the reading, and I like to multitask, but that's a little hard sometimes. That's a little hard sometimes, you know, to do that. And but you know, in the meantime, doing that, and I didn't do it for it. I almost felt guilty. I got booked for all these private groups.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff like that, and it was like, oh my God, I got all these things that came from
I think
doing that freebie thing, and I did it because that man, and I went to Market Basket afterwards, and I was absolutely exhausted, and I came home and I said, you know, I have to do this, because if I wait till tomorrow, I'll get wrapped into 90 other things.
Another day, right?
Yeah. And it's it's crazy how it works. But I know you get a lot of feelings, because sometimes you talk to me and you get feelings.
A lot of feelings, yeah. It just comes through. And I feel like I'm so excited about it, and I'm so happy about it. So I'm kind of on that frequency to where I can hear, and I'm receptive to it because I'm so excited about it. So it's sometimes not excited for other people, but exciting for me.
I have an off switch, and I'm I don't want to go into the grocery store and see everybody's dead relatives around. My grocery store that I used to go to all the time, I tend to go off here and there now, but the one that I used to go to, it was right in the middle of the mind's eye in my house. So people would see me and say, do you get a feeling? So I'd say to them, I get a feeling my husband wants pastrami.
And we're hungry.
You know what I mean? Because
I think what happened was I started to not like that. So then it just shut off. But it was when I was curious and loved it, it was on. So,
well, you know what I think I found? If I'm sitting there and I'm running into a store to pick something up, and I have to go meet a client or I need to do something, I don't want to be thrown off keel by somebody coming to me and saying. So, like some of the stars that have done that, you know, good for them, but it's I don't believe in it. So,
well, I think they're probably still excited about, you know, and that's they're doing that as a job, so it's going to keep happening then that way. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
So
I liked it when Thomas John did it, because he asked permission. So I didn't have a problem when he did the Uber driving type of thing, and he asked permission. I found that really fun to watch.
Well, it's comforting for people.
But coming into, you know, somebody standing on the road and you walk past them, or in a laundromat or something, and doing that.
I usually warn everybody. You know what happens is they usually end up asking me, what do you do for work? And then I said, oh, someone's talking to them, because it kind of transfers, right? I stopped just blurting out things, and they'll say, well, what do you do for work? And I say, oh, I'm a medium. And then you'll start to feel that person will open up and be curious about it. And then if they have questions, then you can respond. But yeah, it's much easier that way than...
You'd laugh. I had troubles getting my boss at my corporate job to accept the fact that I was leaving. So when some of the bigwigs came in and they said, how are you going to leave? You're always so busy and you're doing stuff. What are you going to do after you leave here? And I said, talk to dead people. And he goes, will you stop saying that? You know?
Well, see, and they needed a little bit of an adjustment for themselves, because maybe they needed a belief system. And I feel like when you're telling people that, and you're so analytical, that I feel like people are going to respond and be like, well, she's analytical, but she also has this side where she believes in...
Well, like the ADHD, and I was never diagnosed.
Right.
I just, my family looks like a Ritalin commercial. None of us are on anything, but we look like a Ritalin commercial. But I think it's the same thing. Like, I didn't have to do drugs in my life, because I go to the movie theater and have buttered popcorn and Raisinets and like get a kick out of my taste buds. My husband says to me, thank God you never did drugs. Do you know what I mean?
Well, because you're already happy and excited.
And what happens too is I love the exchange of the left side of the brain to the right. I love doing that. So I'd be doing accounting and stuff and analytical stuff all day. And then I'd go up to the mind's eye, skidding in the parking lot to meet my client on time, and then flip over to the right side of the brain. And I have a fabulous running water that helps me do it, to me, you know.
Yeah, well, it also helps with skeptical people, I think, because you have the physical evidence of the understanding.
Yes.
So a lot of people don't get to the fluff yet. They're not there.
They're not at the fluff yet,
Not
Lyndsey.
at the fluff yet, yeah. Well, because I know, because I believed very differently before. So when people come to me and I'm like, I understand where you are, but think of a flow. Think of like energy as a flow rather than something that's going to come out here. And
so what other stuff do you do besides mediumship?
What else do I do?
Psychic readings as well. Because
I was going to say take baths and take the dogs out.
I'm talking in the metaphysical.
I mostly do mediumship. I tend to not do Reiki as much. I love to do Reiki, but I don't do it as much. I kind of use it as a tool, though. Reiki taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about energy and energy over the body.
Well, you know, you've taken some classes from me. I think the more tools you have in the toolbox.
Well, you learn, right, and you learn from that. So Reiki taught me how to, you know, have someone lying there and then feel the energy of the person, because life will teach you to block everything out. Life teaches you have a boundary and keep your wall up, and when you've had a life experience of things that might be a little bit harder, then you close it off. You close off the feeling.
Perfect, yep.
So it teaches you to open it back up.
Open it back up.
Yeah.
Yes. So no, I do. I'm being pushed to do more mediumship right now, and I hate to give up the other stuff. So it's like a struggle for me, but it's reaching a point where I can only.
You'll only connect there.
Do so much stuff.
I just love the mediumship so much. It's been enough for me. So it has me feeling fulfilled.
I like to teach a lot too, though, and you're doing some classes too.
I like to teach because I think that people think that you should skip ahead and just go right to the mediumship, but you have to learn to communicate prior to the mediumship, because people are in a different state of mind when they're grieving, so you don't want to be throwing things out there that might create fear, or you just want to hold yourself accountable for what you're communicating, I feel like. And sometimes people will get the mediumship, like I got the mediumship right in, and I was validating everything, but the compassion and the empathy and the just overall love for the other person didn't kick in for a little while, because I was so wanting to be right that the loving part or the compassion for the person sitting over me.
Well, I found it was about 10 years ago, and about 10 years ago when I realized I needed to leave the corporate job, I realized that I liked the fact that I was in a man's world, and I was the one that could fix everything, and my ego loved that. Emotion. And all of a sudden my ego didn't care about that, and then I noticed my ego in my readings. So people now, they'll say, no, I have nobody like that, and I'll say, just take it with you.
Yeah, that's it. And then you let it go.
Then the number of people that I hear from 6 months, a year later, that sit there and say, oh my God, la, 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 la.
Yeah.
And then there's a good group of them that drive home, and on the way home they realize what it is.
Right.
But it was before that, I would be so afraid of being wrong. And in the healing industry, wrong isn't because we don't want to be known that we're wrong. Wrong is that you don't want to not give them everything that they want.
Right. That they can feel good leaving. It wasn't because I didn't want to be wrong. It was because I wanted them to feel like there was an afterlife. There's people with them. They are connected. They love you. It wasn't because I needed that right for myself. I wanted people to feel that. I wanted them to feel their loved ones. And now you really can't get there from that space, so you have to let it go.
And I love that you're doing that, because there's two in particular rather famous mediums that one of them in particular has the best evidential information I've ever heard in my life, and that's why I was drawn to him. But the fact that he can name the street that you were born on, if he can't do the emotional part, what good is it?
Right. You want
and
to
there's
be able
a female that I love her newsletter and everything, but I've seen her a couple of times, and it's like, when it comes to the emotional part, she turns to the next person, but people go, ooh, because they're good at the evidential.
Right.
And that isn't the part that's going to heal people.
You want to pull it all together.
And you're a fanatic about it being the part that's going to heal.
Well, yeah, because you can validate so much, and I know that you feel like, I think what happens is people cut off their emotion because they're looking at it so much of being sad. And I think what I did is I changed it from being people's heartache and sadness to people's connection. So I shut it off. I shut off the fact that felt bad and made it feel good. You know, lots of kids have come to me, and I used to feel so bad about children. And then I'm like, well, I have to stay with the children and where they are, otherwise I'm not going to connect with them. If I go to where they are, I'm not going to feel where they are. So I have to stay where the kids are and feel happy about it, because if you deliver messages based on where they are, the sitter, then you're both going to be in the same spot. So you kind of want to stay where you are and then bring them towards.
Lyndsey Lefort, how do people get a hold of you?
Okay, so you can go onto my Facebook page. It's Lyndsey, The Light Within.
The Light Within? I didn't even know that, but I see you all the time.
I changed it because it was just my name, and I wanted to, even if people read it, to promote a feeling of light within themselves. And I feel like they could contact you.
Excellent. And if they contact me,
you needed a little bit
I
more
can
work.
find her even when nobody else can find her.
That's right.
I got a tracker
Under
on her.
multiple contacts in your phone also.
I got a tracker on her. And mentally, are we going to the Disney cruise with our other friend?
Yes.
As we talk about this.
We're putting it out there in our minds.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you came today. And it's absolutely perfect that you were able to come today, and you helped me out. I had somebody sick,
thank
and you helped
you
me
so
out.
much.
Besides the fact that
thank you.
I could talk to you for 3 days,
Yeah.
so it's not a problem. And we've done that on the phone at times. We've actually,
I know.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I find it to be interesting.
Yeah. It always is. It always is.
There's always another
And we all met
subject.
through Jeremy.
That's right. See how nice it is?
Yeah.
Jeremy.
That Jeremy.